raccoons. I get a lot of calls about raccoons. They're fascinating creatures. They're incredibly intelligent. Of all of our cages, raccoons were the ones that we had to really work hard to keep from escaping, because if there's a way out, they'll figure it out. This is one jealous that he wasn't in the picture I was about to take. So like, you can see he's like, wait a second, I'm almost there. Okay, now you can take the shot. They're so cute, but we learned that with the raccoons, I had this drain in their cage, and I covered the drain with a huge rock. So we would clean the cage by just using water and stuff, and then we would cover it with this big rock, and we were like, it's fine, because one raccoon cannot move that rock out of the way, so they won't be able to escape. And I was right, half right. One raccoon could not move that rock, but 11 raccoons working together with a common goal totally moved that rock. Luckily they were young, so when they're hungry, they come right back like, okay, we made a mistake. But we definitely learned a lot of modifications that we made, and now our cages are definitely foolproof, but they definitely tried us. I'd say every year around February, March, we get all the babies in. So these are very young babies. This one's just a couple days old, and this one's about a week old. They're absolutely adorable. Most of the raccoons that we get, the orphan ones, are because somebody found a raccoon in their attic and they had it removed, and they had no idea that mom had babies. So we'll get a call 3 or 4 days later when the babies are crying and hungry and looking for mom, and by that point, we have no idea where she is. So my suggestion would be, if you do get a raccoon in your attic around February or March, good chance we're talking about a pregnant female. So sometimes people can have them removed before they have babies, but if you are trying to get one out, you can talk to pest control companies about just letting mom outside of your house, blocking up entrances, and you can bring babies out. You shouldn't touch them. The pest control companies, being very cautious, could. But if the babies are brought out too, mom will move her babies to a different location. So that's the best case scenario. I don't expect you to live with a raccoon in your attic. They can certainly destroy things, and nobody wants a raccoon pooping in their attic. But be mindful that there could be babies, and a lot of these people, had they known, would have done things differently. They are super adorable as babies. It's like you took a dog and a cat and a bear and like a monkey and put them all together. They make the cutest sounds, they're very vocal, and you can see how a lot of people would actually just want to keep them as pets. So we deal with that every year too, where people have tried to keep them, which can be dangerous. We run a lot of tests on the animals to make sure that they don't have any parasites that are contagious to people, that we put them in quarantine to make sure they're not harboring any diseases. Obviously they are a rabies vector species, so we have to be very cautious. If they've bitten or scratched anyone who found them, then the state's very strict about rules and regulations. Like, I have to send this animal in for testing, and the way they run the test is not one that the animal can survive. So it's very important, if you ever find one, to make very certain that you're not bitten or scratched, that you're always wearing gloves and you're cautious, and don't let your kids play with them. They're cute, and you might want to, but it's not wise. How do you know if a raccoon's orphaned and needs help? Sometimes you might see babies wandering around without mom. They get to an age where they're curious and they're kind of leaving the den a little bit. So you might see some, but if they look healthy, they're bright and alert, I wouldn't bother with them too much. Mom might just be gone. Now, if you see them constantly crying, or especially a single one, like on the side of the road, this one right here, I don't know if you can see from the picture, but its eyes are really sunken in. It's the middle of the day, and he's just curled up in a ball, not worried about being seen. That's a situation where you want to get a wildlife rehabilitator involved. And just so you don't feel bad for him, these are pictures of him. We got him better, and we have certain ways of dealing with them to help them. We have incubators to warm them up. We have actually specific raccoon formula. There actually is such a thing. So we're able to help them. Now, this is a picture. I always ask everybody, people get worried about raccoons and rabies. And so I deal with some people not worried enough. who let their kids play with raccoons. And I deal with some people who think any raccoon out during the day must certainly be rabid. And that's not the case either. If you had to guess which one of these 2 raccoons that were out during the day had rabies, which one would you think? The one on the right or the one on the left?
Right.
You're right. Right. Yes, that one actually was found in Chelmsford and did test positive for rabies. So how do we know? Like, there's no way to know for certain unless the animal's tested, but we know something's not right. Both of them are out during the day, but this one is clearly very aware of what's going on. It's looking directly at us, it's moving all of its legs, and they might look at you, but they're not gonna let you get too close. This one's probably just a hungry mama that's got 6 babies to feed, and she's gotta forage during the day. This one, the way it's slumped down, it actually couldn't use its back legs. Staring off into space, didn't really even know I was there. Clearly not right. So it's more about the way they're acting behaviorally, how aware they are, how friendly they are, because friendly isn't actually always a good thing. People think if they're rabid that they're super aggressive and mean. That's not always the case. Sometimes it makes them friendly. So if they're just not acting right in general, but not being out during the day, that's not the overall end-all be-all on rabies. Beavers. So just like Sammy stole my heart on porcupines, we have a beaver. If you don't follow us on Facebook, you have to learn about Nibby. I've always loved beavers. I always worked with adults until we got Nibby, who was found in Sturbridge. She was 1 pound. She was absolutely tiny, and she was found walking on the side of a busy road. And so she stole my heart, and I've learned so much about beavers working with her. So beavers make 2 things. They make dams and they make lodges. These are actually 2 different structures. So dams are what they use to block up water. That's what gets them in trouble, a lot of people. They always want to raise the water table where they live. Now, why do they want to do that? Well, they're safest in the water. The coyotes aren't going to try and get them in the water. The bobcats aren't going to want to swim. So the higher the water table is, the safer they are. So the dams are really just to keep water from getting out of their area. The lodges are for them to stay in for their families. So they'll stay in there all winter long, and when their family's together in a lodge, the temperatures get to around 90 degrees all winter long. They have entries and exits from the water. You can't actually access a lodge from the outside. You have to access from underwater. I don't know why I say you have to access. It's not like you're going to be trying to go into a beaver. I wouldn't recommend it. But that's how they get in and out. And you'll have mom and dad that are mates, and they'll start their family, and last year's siblings will actually hang around and raise this year's babies. So siblings will stay with mom and dad for 1 to 2 years and learn how to beaver, learn how to build their dams, and help take care of the babies, and they'll help defend the territory. Beavers are very, very territorial. They only let their family in that area. They don't let any new beavers in. Another interesting fact about beavers, they have orange teeth. It's not because they don't brush. It's because their teeth need to be super strong to cut through trees. If you or I were to try to bite a tree off, it wouldn't happen. We'd break our teeth. But their teeth are fortified with iron. So the same thing that makes our blood red makes their teeth orange. Porcupines are the same way. Porcupines also have orange teeth. So these guys can chop through trees with those orange fortified teeth, and their teeth, like all rodents, never stop growing. So if they file them down from lots of chewing, it's not a problem because they'll continuously grow. In fact, it's a problem if they're not chewing on stuff because the teeth can actually, something called malocclusion, if they can continuously grow if they're not sawed down by stuff that they're eating, and that can cause a problem. So these guys are always busy chewing on stuff, and it works out. Nature's prepared them that way. I'm going to introduce you to Nibby now. Well, she's not here, but here's a good video to show you. This is Nibby a few weeks after we found her. See, how can you not fall in love? That tail, that little chunky little body, she's so cute. Here's the closer pictures. We didn't know she was a boy or a girl because you cannot sex a beaver without an x-ray. All their sex organs are internal. So we just guessed, and initially we thought she was a boy. I don't know why. She's so sassy, I should have guessed she was a girl. But, so we couldn't actually have the x-ray done on her until she was about 6 months old, because she had to be sedated for it, and we didn't want to do that to her. But Nibby is a girl. Oh, let me go back. One thing I learned, so porcupines are drama queens. Beavers are very headstrong, obnoxiously so. Since she was my first baby beaver, I struggled with her in feeding her, which I didn't understand because I bottle-fed raccoons forever. I bottle-fed my kids. I knew how to bottle feed. But she would act so hungry, and then we'd offer her the bottle, and she would refuse it. And I was getting worried for her, so I called a rehabber out in Tennessee that does tons of beavers all the time, and I said, hey, I'm having this problem. She won't take the bottle, and she's like, oh, it's because it's your idea. And I was like, what? Figured she was gonna say it's the wrong formula, or use this special nipple. She's like, it's your idea, that's why she won't do it. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how could that, why would she not drink because it's my idea? She's like, well, beavers are very headstrong. And if she thinks it's your idea and not hers, she won't do it just based on principle. I was like, that's great. How do I fight that then? She said, well, you have to put the bottle in front of her and let her tell you when she wants it. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I'm thinking, this woman's lost her mind. She's given me advice so many times, it was always good advice, but this sounded ridiculous. Like, how could an animal be that headstrong that it would starve itself just to prove a point? So I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. So I have Nibby on the floor, instead of picking her up and putting the bottle in her mouth, I put the bottle on the ground, and I sit there and I wait. And Nibby walks up to that bottle, sniffs it, throws her head up and walks away. I'm like, okay, exactly what I expected. And then she turns around, walks up to the bottle again, sniffs it, snuffs her head at it. Third time, walks up to the bottle, looks at me, looks at the bottle, and decides that she will have it now. And since that day, she guzzled them down, as long as I waited till it was her idea, and I couldn't believe it. So beavers, yes, incredibly headstrong. Now I know what my parents dealt with me my whole life, but so it was really, really interesting to learn about her and about beavers in general, apparently. So she's much bigger now, but when she was first getting the hang of swimming, we would put her in the sink. And beavers and otters naturally float, which makes sense, right? Because their moms are having babies right there near the water. They need to be near the water to keep them safe. But if the babies fall for any reason, if they don't float, they would drown because they don't know how to swim. So beavers and otters naturally float. Nibby had a lot of personality, just like Sammy. This is her in a food coma, which happens frequently. And this is her just being silly. I don't even know how that happened, but she uses her tail to like help prop her up when she's sitting. It's so adorable. Her first year of life, she was for her first 5 months that she was with us, she was a single baby. So typically, when we have animals, we put them with others their age, maybe not their siblings, but other orphans their age. She was the only orphan beaver in New England that any rehab had. And we were trying to work with multiple states to find another baby beaver because you can't just leave them alone. Okay, I couldn't just put her in a cage and say, well, I can't interact with her because I don't want her to get used to people. Because she'd get incredibly depressed. These guys are very family oriented. You know, it's just like if you took a baby and you just put it in a cage and fed it and kept it warm, like emotionally, it really bothers them. So, she was with us all the time. Didn't bother us at all. But definitely a diva. When it comes to lettuce, Nibby will not eat the spines. She eats her lettuce like corn on the cob, avoiding the spines at all costs. Such a waste. Toss it to the side. So after we fed her, we'll come back and she's gonna nothing but like a cemetery of spines everywhere. Now, I got really excited when she was 5 months old because I got a call from Rhode Island, from a wildlife center there, and they were like, we have a 5-month-old orphan baby beaver. I was ecstatic. I talked to Rhode Island Fish and Game. I talked to Massachusetts Fish and Game. I got approval to have this orphan baby come, and I was like, this is awesome. They're gonna have each other. It's so good for their growth and for them to understand their own species. And Nibby wanted no part of that. We tried for months. See how, right, in this picture, we're putting them together. We're trying to calm Nibby down, like, don't bite our new friend, don't bite our new friend. Nibby, just like she was like very headstrong about the bottle, she's very headstrong about this not working out. So one day, what I would do is I would give them each alone time in the pond. So we had a big outdoor pond for them. So Nibby and Zebe, this was Zebe. Zebe was out in the pond, and Nibby had the rehab room to herself. And as soon as Zebe was out, Nibby started building a dam at the doorway to keep Zebe away from the rehab room. So you can see how focused she is. She was so excited, she wasn't messing around. Quickly working on it too. Look at her. She's like, yes, she'll never get back in here. She would always hop when she was excited. And when I released this video online and it got like 11 million views, CNN called me. Everybody like that was the most fascinating thing. And biologists called me because they were like, the hopping thing. We've never seen that before, the hopping thing. Did you raise her with rabbits? No, we did not trust her with any other animals. She just always did that when she was excited. And speaking with more biologists, it's a thing that younger beavers do, just to get out their excitement and their energy. So Nibby came in at 1 pound. This is a picture of her just last week. She is 22 pounds right now. Beavers never stop growing. Porcupines are the same way. Adult beavers can get to 60 pounds, the ones that are older. Usually when they're 1 or 2, they're about 20. 3-year-olds are about 30 or 40. So these guys are big, bigger than a lot of people think they are. They're actually the largest rodents in North America. They eat a lot, especially when they waste the spines. Foxes. These are, I keep saying everything's my favorite. I don't know, I love them all. So we've been doing a lot of foxes, especially this year. A lot of people are saying it's a big predator year because we didn't have a really bad winter last year. So a lot of animals that would have died off didn't, and the predators have been eating quite well this year. This is Hope. She is a fox that we took care of for mange and something called canine vestibular disease. We had her for actually almost a year. And 6 months into her care, we received 3 fox kits that were orphans. They weren't found together. They were 3 fox kits from different places in Massachusetts. I had no intentions of introducing them. I was afraid because a fox, Hope's size, if she decided she didn't like them, could easily kill a fox kit. But I had them in cages beside each other because I wanted the fox kids to get used to seeing another fox. After days of watching them try to get to each other, we ended up doing a very, very cautious introduction. And they fell in love. And Hope raised those 3 kids like they were her own, and they were all released together. It was the sweetest, sweetest thing. But I want to talk to you guys about mange. That's what Hope was reading for. Has anyone ever seen a mangy fox in your neighborhood? You see, like, Facebook blows up, all the community groups blow up when someone sees a fox with mange, or a coyote, any animal with mange. Let me tell you what it is. It's actually a mite that burrows under their skin. And it lays eggs in there, it has feces in there, and the animals develop an allergic response to this. So after they've replicated and had so many babies, and there's millions of them on this animal, the animal's absolutely miserable. They even go on the eyelids, so the foxes can't really see that well, which is a big problem if you're a predator, because they have to be able to hunt. Also, your skin is your largest organ. It's very important for homeostasis, which is maintaining your regular body temperature, for example. So these foxes are miserable, they can't sleep, they're itching all the time, they can't stay warm. So a lot of people will see them right now because they're following the sun. So whereas a healthy fox is gonna hide in the trees and the bushes, these foxes are like, I'm freezing, they're gonna be right there in the open, wherever it's warm. Sometimes a mulch pile that holds heat, sometimes a warm rock. So I don't know if you guys have heard Hawkins' story. So this story ends well, I promise you, but this is Hawkins, not the first day I got him, because the first day I got him was a really upsetting photo. But Hawkins had mange really, really bad. He was in such rough shape. He actually couldn't even walk. The way he would sit, you see how he's holding his legs in? He'd gotten so thin that his body started to feed off of his muscle. He just couldn't hunt, he couldn't move, he was miserable. But it wasn't just mange that Hawkins was dealing with. And this is what I'm seeing a lot in these areas, okay? He had rat poison as well. And you'd say, well, why on earth would a fox have rat poison? They're not fitting into those bait boxes. Well, the problem is they're eating the animals that do fit into those bait boxes, okay? So these guys love eating mice. They love eating rats. That's pretty much all these guys want to do. They wake up in the morning and they're like, where are the mice? So let's say Johnny poisoned 6 mice at his house and Sue poisoned 5 mice at her house. And I said Johnny, it's his name. So Johnny would never. So let's say that Hawkins sees all these compromised mice, right? Some of them are already dead and he can barely see because he's got mange. He's like, sweet, a free meal. Or maybe some of these mice or rats haven't died yet, but they're moving really slow. Some researchers in California are studying a link between mange and rat poison. They're doing it in bobcats especially. They found that it affects their immune system and their ability to fight these things off. So what I'm saying is we're seeing a lot of foxes with mange that also have rat poison, which makes them very, very hard to treat. So the way that it works, like how does rat poison even kill something? Your body has to clot to heal. And rat poison removes its ability to clot by removing one of your clotting factors. So if you think of your blood clotting like a domino game, right? You hit one thing and then everything falls. If you remove one domino, it stops. So rat poison removes, most of them remove vitamin K from that domino game. And so the animal's trying to clot, but it needs that vitamin K to clot, now it can't. Shouldn't be a problem as long as he doesn't get a laceration or an injury, right? Not true. In this room right now, your bodies are constantly healing themselves. Little nicks and things in your veins and arteries constantly. The first step to healing is clotting. If your blood couldn't clot right now, you'd be feeling it. So it's very important that their blood clot properly. Rat poison affects more animals than just foxes. A lot of people that rehabilitate birds of prey are seeing it. So this is kind of how it works, right? So you have the rodents that eat it, hopefully never your pets. Sometimes people's pets will eat mice or rats. Skunks and weasels love mice and rats, raccoons, foxes, coyotes. We don't have mountain lions, thank goodness. But all these animals eat the rodents. So and some of the animals eat the animals that eat the rodents. And they can get poisoned that way. So like, let's say this weasel eats a poisoned mouse, and then the owl eats the poisoned weasel. You're thinking, okay, well, one weasel's probably not gonna do it, but a great horned owl actually hunts about 2,000 rodents every year. So let's consider that. Let's say Sue poisons 6 rats in her house, her neighborhood great horned owl eats those 6 poisoned rodents and dies. Well, Sue's neighborhood's gonna have 2,000 more rodents this year. So if you think about it like that, rat poison is actually pretty short term as far as success. Luckily with Hawkins, we were able to save him. We did treat him with vitamin K. It takes about 6 weeks of treatment. We treated him for the mange. So this is him. He was actually put in with another fox that was treated for mange. That's Milo behind him. Hawkins went from so fearful and terrified of everything to defending Milo. Anytime I walked in that cage, he would stand firmly in front of him like, don't touch him, don't give me that nasty medicine, leave him alone. So they were released together. They ended up being best friends. So that was a heartwarming story, but definitely I always want to push for people not to poison animals if they can help it. Anybody know what this is? Did you know that woodchucks and groundhogs are the same thing? A lot of people don't know that. Whistle pig. Yeah, they're the same animal. I did not know that. When I first moved here, I was like, trying to Google, I was like, I don't know if it's a woodchuck or a groundhog. I feel like they look alike. No, they're the same animal. This is Stanley. What makes groundhogs special? What makes them unique? Anybody know? I mean, a lot of things, but I feel like most people, when they think about groundhogs, think about hibernation. They're one of the true hibernators. Some animals people think hibernate, but they don't. Some of them just go into torpor, like chipmunks actually go into torpor. So they sleep for a long time, but they will wake up to eat. Whereas groundhogs, when they go down for hibernation, they're not waking up until Groundhog Day. So hibernation I find so fascinating. These animals, their heartbeats go from 80 beats per minute to 5 beats per minute when they're in hibernation. Their respiratory rate goes from 16 breaths per minute to as few as 2 breaths per minute. Their body temperature goes from 99 degrees to 37 degrees. 32 is freezing. It's insane to me that their bodies can actually undergo this and then come out and survive. Why do they have hibernation? Why do groundhogs need to hibernate? Well, everything these guys eat, which you can see is all around this one, is not around the winter, especially up here. If they don't hibernate, they won't survive. They have to slow their systems down. And the reason why they have to slow their systems down is they have to conserve as much energy as possible. So their body's not using energy to warm itself, to keep its heart going, to keep its breaths going. Everything's slowed down so it uses as little energy as possible over the next few months. But before then, they love to eat. Our groundhogs eat so much. I'd say they're on par with our beaver, but like a tenth their size. They love veggies, not fruit so much, but they're all about the veggies. And different groundhogs like different things too. They all have different favorites. But they eat a ton, and they're basically just trying to store for the winter. I'm going to introduce you to Stanley. This is Stanley. A few weeks after he first came in, he was found orphaned. Tiny little thing. So he was syringe fed for a little while. And he was raised with 2 other groundhogs. And when we brought them all outside, we realized something wasn't quite right with Stanley. He was way overly friendly, first of all. Usually when they're raised together, they're not near as friendly. And once we had him in an outdoor cage, his health started to really go bad. I didn't understand why. He was losing weight, he looked so stressed, he wouldn't relax. When we brought him inside, we realized that he was starting to have seizures. And his vet diagnosed him with epilepsy. So now Stanley has to have medications 3 times a day to keep him from seizuring. And his medications work. And he's a very happy boy, but he's never going to be releasable. I'm actually trying to get permission from the state for Stanley to come to my talks with me, so fingers crossed, because you guys will fall in love with him. I'll show you why I fall in love with him. Here's a video of Stanley today. Well, not today, but a few weeks ago. All right, so what do you do if you find an orphan or an injured animal? Chances are you're not going to find that many orphans right now. Usually we start seeing orphans in February, March. Some rabbits are still having babies right now, which blows my mind, but let's talk about what you do. So let's say you see a squirrel under a tree like this. One that's obviously too young to be on its own, but we don't see mom anywhere. What do you do? Well, first thing you want to do is observe. And I would observe for a half hour, but not right up on the squirrel, maybe from like a distance to where mom would still feel safe coming down, because sometimes they fall down and mom just doesn't realize they're gone yet. She might just need a minute. So we don't want to rush in assuming anything about the situation. But if you've watched for like a half hour or so and mom's not around, I would pick up the baby. You want to wear gloves just to be cautious. We don't know what these animals have. And you want to provide the animal with supplemental heat. So when they're that little, they actually can't maintain their own body temperature. So if you have a blanket and you take, there's a lot of different ways to warm them up. One simple way is hot water in a water bottle, because everyone's got access to that. And then you take that bottle with the hot water and you want to wrap it in a towel, okay? So that's one quick way to warm them up. You don't want to put them right up against a bottle filled with hot water because it might be too hot for them. And then you just want to put the animal right up against that bottle, and that will keep them warm for a few hours typically. So once we know there's something to keep them nice and warm, we can offer them back to mom. We just don't want them to get hypothermic while they're waiting for mom. So here we go, baby back up against the tree where we saw it with the heat. Then we wait until nightfall. Give it like 12 hours. Mama squirrels won't come back at night. In that case, you want to put them in a warm, dark, and quiet place. Make sure they can't escape whatever you've got them in. Make sure they can breathe. Make sure there's air holes in there. And while you're just keeping them warm, you want to look for a local wildlife rehabilitator. You guys are all close by. I'm one of the ones that you can call, but there's actually 200 in the state of Massachusetts. And mass.gov has a website where you can find who's nearest to you. Or if you have a friend that's like lives 2 hours from you and you want to suggest rehab to them, they can try and find someone close by as well. Bunnies confuse a lot of people. First of all, I don't know how many calls I've had about baby woodchucks or baby beavers that ended up being baby bunnies. They just look like they could be anything. Usually the dead giveaway is the ears and the tiny, tiny little tail. And the fact that they're so small too. They only need 3, maybe 4 weeks with mom. So they grow so fast. But the problem is, their moms make their nests in the middle of people's yards. Anybody ever had a rabbit nest in their yard? I mean, they make it places where you're like, why? Like, why would you do? It's not like under a bush. It's not like, under someone's porch. It's in the middle of a yard with like no trees close by at all. And all it is a shallow divot in the ground. That's it. And then they cover it with dirt, or not dirt, with grass and their fur. And mom only comes twice a day. And she's only there for like maybe a few minutes. She doesn't want to draw attention to her baby, so she keeps it pretty quick. But some people will call me about a rabbit nest they found. They're like, mom's not been around, I haven't seen her. I'm like, well, she might be around, but that's literally her job, is to make sure you don't see her. And she's not going to be there all day like maybe a mama raccoon would. 3 different weeks, basically. This is week 1. We call them hippos. They kind of look like hippos on top of everything else they look like. This is like week 2. Huge difference, right? We look like bunnies, now we look like a bunny. And then week 3. Like the size of a softball, doesn't need mom anymore. This messes with a lot of people too, because they look way too little to be on their own, but they're fine. And you don't want to capture them and stress them out and offer them formula when they're this age, because you won't be helping. So that's another thing to keep in mind is, that's why there's a hand in this picture, so you can kind of get an idea of size. Like when they're that size, they're totally fine. Now, what if your dog got into a nest? Because I get those calls a lot. Everyone gets mad at their dog. They'll show up with a cardboard box. They're like, I can't believe little Timmy did this to this nest. But a lot of times people don't even know the nest was there, or they ran over the nest with their lawnmower and they don't know if mom will come back. And some people will look for nests in their lawn before they mow it, but I'll tell you right now, I know exactly what those nests look like, and I'd be shocked if I could find one. The moms are really good at hiding them. Let's say you're not sure if she's coming back or not. The nest was disrupted. What I always tell everybody is tic-tac-toe pattern on the nest. You could use floss, you could use sticks. Just put the nest back how you found it, tic-tac-toe pattern, and wait 24 hours. If that tic-tac-toe pattern is exactly how you left it, mom's not been back. If it's been disturbed, mom's been back. So, when you first find them, like I said when we were talking earlier, you want to keep them warm. A lot of people are like, it's 90 degrees outside. Why do I gotta keep them warm? A lot of these animals, their body temperature is supposed to be around 100. So if they can't maintain their own body temperature and it's 90 degrees outside, then their body temperature is probably 90 degrees, maybe even less. Well, 90 degrees for you or I would be hypothermic severely, like you'd be in the hospital. So 90 degrees isn't quite warm enough for some of them. I don't care how warm it is outside, you want to provide them, especially if their eyes are closed, they really need that supplemental heat. You want to keep it dark wherever you put them. We want to limit the stimulation. If they're in a den where mom usually is, they're someplace dark and hidden, unless they're a rabbit. Well, they're still dark, but it's not hidden that well. So you want to keep it dark, in a dark like cardboard box, or in a room that you turn the light off, and in a box. You just want to limit the stimulation, limit the stress. You want to keep it quiet. That's really hard for me. Sometimes when I do rescues, I'll blare Metallica on the way to the rescue, and then the ride back is like in complete silence, which is so hard for me. But you want to keep that in mind. So if you've got like your dogs barking and kids are screaming, you want to put them in a separate room because that's going to cause them so much stress. Another thing is, don't touch them. And what I mean by that, like obviously you have to pick them up, you want to wear gloves, but just like the example I was given with the raccoons, like don't get yourself in a situation where these animals have to be tested because they scratched or bit someone. You want to make sure you're using protection when you're grabbing them. Probably one of the most important things I can tell you is don't feed them. Some people think, and a lot of times when you see these babies that are orphaned, maybe they're orphaned for days, they look like they're starving. The first thing you want to do is stuff their faces. But usually their bodies are not in a place where they can accept food. You can't feed a hypothermic animal. Their bodies are literally, all their energy is going to keeping their heart beating, basic body functions. Everything else has shut down. If you put food in their body, now they have to use energy they don't have to try to digest. You can actually kill an animal by feeding it when it's hypothermic. Let's say you get it warm. Feels warm to me, should be fine. Chances are, if it's an orphan, it's super dehydrated. And the intestines actually pull fluid in to digest things. So maybe we've got a warm animal, but it's super dehydrated. You've given it food it can't digest because it's got no extra fluid to spare. So let's say you get it warm, it's hydrated. The formulas that we give these animals, I actually don't even give them formula to start with. And when I do give them formula, it's so diluted to begin with. We slowly amp it up. And if it's a squirrel, it gets squirrel formula. If it's a bunny, I have stuff shipped from Australia because it's the best formula for them, and it's a bunny formula. Goat's milk doesn't feed everything, I swear. So it's so important not to feed them for all those reasons. But if you can get them to be warm and not stressed out and just hungry or just thin or dehydrated, I can fix them. And I love my finders that bring it to me warm, because when they're warm, I can start fixing them. But even I would take a hypothermic animal above an animal that's warm and been fed, because it's so much harder for me to save those ones if the animal's not in a place where it's ready to be fed. So, that concludes my presentation. Did you enjoy it? All right. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer? It was a lot of information. Yes, sir.
Worried about the dogs. We have 3 of them, and they like to eat rabbit food.
Oh yeah, that can be an issue.
If the rabbit came in contact with rat poisoning or something like that,
Yeah.
Would that be?
No, it wouldn't be an issue in the feces. What I'm more concerned about with rabbits would be coccidia. Sometimes they get intestinal parasites. So if your dog ate the rabbit, the poison stays in their liver. That would be a concern. So if he ate the rabbit or the liver, that'd be an issue. But in the feces, it shouldn't be. And I haven't seen rabbits poisoned. I think it's because a lot of people are using the bait boxes. And the rabbits don't go into those bait boxes, and they don't eat rats or mice. So you should be okay there, but I would have his species tested for the parasites that rabbits sometimes have, the main one being coccidia.
Yeah, he did get tested and he had,
Yeah, he had something.
rat
We have
poison.
3 dogs.
He had rat poison?
He had, what shows up in feces of mice and rats. So does that mean, you probably, I didn't get a question on that.
Yeah.
But, maybe there's feces out and about in the yard and maybe eat that.
They do, yeah. I don't know why dogs love eating
But
poop.
it's so disgusting.
I do.
Sometimes, you're out there and our old dog that passed away, she would wait for one of them to.
I had a dog like that.
And so, and we pick it up as soon as they go.
Right. It's hard to monitor that.
So
Yeah.
rabbit poop in the summer, it's like a garden of rabbit poop.
Yeah, a lot.
Leave it, stop.
Yeah.
They're chasing them around, chasing them into the house, because you can't.
Right. Oh, I had a dog I had to hide the cat litter boxes from one time. It's like,
But yet, they don't bother the rabbits make their homes in the
Yeah.
yard, and they stand over them like they're guarding them. And I'm like, so then we put the little.
because the rabbits are feeding them.
Right, exactly.
They have a symbiotic relationship.
So there's a
Yeah.
fence around each little rabbit hole,
Yeah.
to protect the rabbits, so we know.
I'd be curious to know, I don't know if you guys can email me later with what they actually found in the dog species. I'm just curious because so we do fecal tests on all the wildlife that comes to us. And if the rabbits in your area have coccidiosis or a lot of parasites, then likely you'd be seeing it, like you'd be seeing sick rabbits. So maybe not, distemper, there's things that they can get from eating feces, but it would depend on what animal. But a rabbit, unless it was, I wouldn't think,
That we have a mangy fox that comes,
you could get something from that.
and I wonder
Yeah.
if that's.
Is she on, I always tell people, if you've got a mangy fox in your area, there's things that you can put on your dogs or your cats to protect them, because mange is very contagious, especially from one dog to another.
Yes.
So if the fox is hanging out in your yard and your dog goes and hangs out in that same area, I use Revolution on my dog because I'm always bringing mangy foxes home. I mean, she's not in the same place, but like they are in a separate area. Revolution is what I put on mine, and it protects them for a month from mange. So I keep mine on that. It's like maybe $15, but it lasts a month. And that also is a dewormer too, so it might be helpful depending on what they found on your dog's species. But I'd be curious to know.
Okay.
I get all excited about poop. People are like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, it tells me things I need to know. Like when we have the problem working with animals is they can't tell you what hurts or what's going on. So in blood draws and feces, we can learn a lot about what they're going through or what problems they have. And sometimes raccoons that people think have rabies have this coccidia that I'm talking to you about, and it can make them very neurological and make them act like they have rabies too. So it's really important. It can tell us a lot. But yeah, definitely try not to eat poop. That's always bad. Come on, buddy.
As smart as he is.
Right?
He's stupid.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How do you get rid of the porcupine quills?
Oh gosh, I have hemostats. Do you know what hemostats are?
Nope.
It's like a clamp. People in med use it a lot. I don't know how somebody would use it. That's what I've always used. I say I always use. It makes it sound like a quill every day. I've gotten quilled like 3 times. But it's hard to just pull them out with your hands. Sometimes you can't. It depends on whether or not they drove them in. The way, I know it sounds bad. I have way too much experience with this. If they use their tail and drove it in, they're in pretty deep and you're gonna need a tool. Hemostats would be, it's what we use and what your doctor's office would probably use. If it was a light brushing, you could probably just pull them out. I usually suggest twisting and pulling them out. Makes them come out a little bit easier, but it hurts. It does hurt, just don't touch them. You planning on getting quilled?
Just want to know what happened.
I don't blame you. I never planned on it either, but I keep poking the bear, so go figure. Yes, sir.
So, first of all, Jane, I'm from Wilmington, so Hawkins was founded in Wilmington.
That's right, he was, yeah.
So you are like a legend in Wilmington. I know that story went super viral, but you had like 25,000 residents from Wilmington following your
No
Facebook page.
kidding.
So thank you for saving his life. And before I get to my question, let me embarrass a couple of people. I want to thank Bruce Schick and Susan Young who are here. They're members of the Tewksbury Open Space and Recreation Committee. So they, along with a handful of other folks, do a great job of promoting and maintaining and protecting our open space. And obviously, wildlife loves open space. So,
Yeah.
so thank you to Bruce and Susan and their colleagues. I also want to thank, who I neglected to thank at the very beginning, Jason from Tewksbury Telemedia for filming today's program. And I also want to thank our friends from the Plus Company and is it Where With Us? I might be getting that quite wrong. I'm not sure if I'm getting that right, but what is it? You're With Us. You're With Us. I want to thank our friends with You're With Us for being here as well. So, my questions, two quick questions.
Sure.
Number one, obviously we're all adults here, but in terms of maybe a teenager might see this video,
Yeah.
any aspiring, so maybe, what would you say to the next Jane Newhouse, someone who's maybe in their teens and thinking about, eventually doing what you do? Can you talk about like your education and what's required?
Absolutely. So what helped me, it's hard when you're under 18 because legally to get to work with these animals, you need to be at least 18, then you could volunteer. Whenever I was very young, I was just trying to get as much information as I could, whether reading National Geographics or watching videos about animals and learning as much as I could about each species, because the more you know what you like, what you're into, what fascinates you, and it can help you to figure out where your niche is and what you want. But then I would also say, I would work either at a veterinary clinic or volunteer at a wildlife center, because some people think they're into it and they think they like it, but they might get into it and realize it can be hard. You do see a lot of suffering, so it's all the feelings, when you can't save them and you know they've been through a lot, it's really hard to swallow. On the flip side of that, when you can bring an animal back that wasn't even supposed to make it, it's like the most incredible feeling in the world. Releasing Hawkins was like such a, I've not been able to say that every fox has come to me with rat poison. So anyway, this is what I was saying, I talk all day. What was the initial question?
Well, no, it was like I was rambling myself, but basically, what advice would you have for a teenager who aspires to be the next Jane Newhouse?
Gotcha, I would say volunteer as much as you can, learn as much as you can about it, make sure it's something that you want to do, but volunteering will give you the best information.
And then finally, Jane, I want to thank you, obviously, most importantly, but also Johnny and Marjorie.
Yes.
And I did not mention, maybe you were going to mention this, that there's free swag on the refreshment table. So they brought pens and stickers and things, so make sure to grab some swag. And then, and we can still take a couple more questions, but also, Jane, how can we help you? How can residents help the Newhouse facility?
Absolutely. So obviously we take donations. That helps with vet bills and anything the animals might need. We also post our Amazon list with the stuff the animals need. Spreading information is huge too, guys. Like spreading, just a lot of people wouldn't use rat poison if they knew. So if you could spread the word on some of these things, or if somebody tells you, I hate that porcupine in my backyard, it's going to shoot squirrels, like you have this information, and I find that you can save so many animals and prevent so much suffering by just getting the information out there. So all those things can help.
And don't feed the babies.
And don't feed the babies. Let me feed the orphans. They're like, wait, don't feed our babies.
So, Jane, you got time for a couple more questions?
Yes, sir.
So any questions on this side of the room?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Foxes, I have 3 in my yard, an adult, 2 young ones. One of the young ones has mange. It's been around all summer. Will he survive without treatment?
No, he will not survive without treatment. So in the next month, usually I still get calls about them until mid-November, but it gets too cold. And they can't really get the bar temperature, so right now they'll be searching for the sun. What I tell people, it's complicated. I have a whole video about how to help them, because you can. We've recently gotten 4 from a lady's barn. So we can't trap them legally. But if you can get him in a situation where he can't get out easily, so I don't know if you have a privacy fence, or if you have a garage he likes to go into, and you can just close the door. If you call me and you say he's in a space where he could be caught, I will rush out there. And my team, we're crazy. All 6 of us will rush out there if it takes multiple people. But one thing I won't do is I won't chase them. If they're out in a parking lot or an open yard, I will not chase them because they cannot waste the energy. I'll only go if I've got a good shot, because otherwise I'm just doing harm, if that makes sense. So try and get creative and think about what you could do, or try to keep an eye on him, because he will need help before it gets too
I
cold.
saw the adult, who's very healthy looking,
Yeah,
and it was long, probably artist, lay down on the patio, scratch his back,
yeah,
then lay down and close his eyes, wrap his tail around, take a nap.
yeah.
But I didn't see any mange on it.
Could be. It could be mange, especially if they're all still kind of hanging out together. And the healthier one will be able to fight it off longer and might be able to fight it off completely. But the ones where you can really tell their system's already kind of caved to it. So,
Okay.
you had a question too?
I had a question about raccoon and roundworm, which
Oh, yeah.
I think is fatal, but not
Bayless.
that common. Like, how cautious are you when you're out?
I'm very cautious about that, actually. It's called Bayless scaris, and raccoon roundworm's not like your dog's roundworm, okay? So, like, if your dog has roundworms, you get it treated. It's not really, I mean, you could potentially get your dog's roundworm, but it's not gonna, like, kill you. Raccoon roundworm, they function fine with it, but other species don't, because unlike a dog's roundworm that would stay in its intestines, raccoon roundworm can migrate beyond the intestines and into the neurological system, can migrate to the brain. It can kill people, it can kill other animals. We see porcupines with it. Sometimes it just makes them often neurological and you can't cure it because it gets into the brain. So whenever I have my raccoon cages, no other animals can go in there but raccoons, because also raccoon roundworm, the eggs can only be killed with fire. No bleach, no ammonia, no nothing, which is another reason why when people want the raccoons out of their attic, I'm like, I can't really blame you, you know? So definitely if you're, I had a lady that was feeding her raccoons, like that were wild raccoons, and she was feeding them on her deck, and she got worried about them because their mom died, so she brought them to me, and they were loaded with roundworms, and I was like, is your dog going on this deck? She's like, I wash it every day, it's fine. I'm like, you need to burn it down. It's no joke, like you do. They don't all have roundworm, but a lot of them do. The real issue is when the poop dries and gets messed with, because then it kind of can be airborne. That's what people get, because obviously we're not like eating raccoon poop. That's when you definitely can't eat raccoon poop. But that's when you definitely gotta be cautious about it. Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question about the opossums. I don't know if it's an unlikely thing that would happen, but say if you saw an opossum that was hit on the road and you called the local
Animal control?
Thank you. You called animal control, but sometimes they have limited schedules and they might not be able to come out.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about them. How likely is it that that would be a mom that has babies?
That's a great question. So it's like so during mating season, you got like a 50-50 shot, right? And I tell people it's pretty easy to tell if you pull over, if it's safe to pull over, you can like get a stick or something and kind of turn the animal over, and the females will have a definitive pouch, and the males, there's no case. The males have blue testicles. So it's pretty obvious if you're looking at a male or a female. So if you see blue testicles, no worry at all. If it's a female, right now, you don't have to worry about it. So it's really just, I say like March, gosh, they have a long period. March through like July, I would be curious. And sometimes you can look and it looks empty, you know, and when they're really pregnant, it's obvious, not pregnant, when they really have a lot of babies in their pouch, it's obvious. And sometimes the babies get thrown too, so that's how a lot of people know. I tell people if they think there's babies in there, we usually take the whole mom, because the babies have to be removed so cautiously, because again, the teat is way down their throat, so you can't just pluck them off, Mom, you have to be so gentle about it. But if you turn her over, it's during mating season, it is a female, you're not sure, you can, with gloves, because their pouches are filthy, just kind of peek in there and see. You're not gonna hurt her, obviously, especially if she's deceased. And if there are babies in there, I tell people, bring me the whole possum. But I totally get the frustration where sometimes I'm not available, and it's an emergency situation, you know? So I do have a video about that actually explains it in detail. So if you message us, I can forward you that, because it's got video and picture and everything. Explain it better than me. I'll just run on and just keep on talking and get off track. Nobody needs that. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
If a cat or dog would eat a poison rat, would one affect them, or does it take multiple?
Usually, so depending on the size animal, right? So a cat is smaller, depends on how much rat poison that animal ate too. So like chipmunks will gourd themselves. They'll fill their cheeks with poison more than they eat in one day. So if you've got a mouse that gourded itself, potentially, most likely if it was just one, you'd probably be okay. I'd still take them to the vet, you know, and have them treated if you knew for certain. Or sometimes if you bring them to the vet, if they've just eaten something, the vets have something they can give them to make them regurgitate it, which would be the ideal situation. But I'd be cautious even with one, you know, just especially with a smaller animal. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Do you have all of these videos on your website if somebody wants to go look something up?
I think we do, right, Marjorie? We have a ton on Facebook, and Marjorie's been updating our website, because I don't know why I feel like everybody's on Facebook. Marjorie's like, can we put it on our website so we professional? There's a bunch of videos on our website as well. Especially there's one about the foxes with mange that really breaks it all down as well, and it's great. The Facebook links are great for the videos just to share in community forums, because a lot of times people are talking and they don't know what to do. I was gonna say with Hawkins, Wilmington ACO is amazing. I love him. Tewksbury Animal Control too, I see these people on a regular basis, and Tewksbury's got amazing. The 3 women that do that, they're amazing.
Which of the epilepsy?
Yes, Stanley.
Now, is that common or?
No, first time I ever saw it.
Yes, I've never heard.
Yeah. No, I've never seen that before. No, they can get liver problems. They can get Bayless from raccoons actually, because they're always chewing on dirt, so they're known to get a lot of parasites and stuff. But I've not seen epilepsy before. I don't know if it's what makes him sweeter, because I don't know if he's like slightly neurological, so it makes him nicer. But he's like the sweetest groundhog ever. Love him. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
You said no food, but what about water?
Water ideally, I wouldn't, just because different animals need different feeding instruments. And so like gray squirrels are very easy to aspirate. My team, even with the experience that we have, sometimes they'll still aspirate because they're super thirsty. Maybe they want to suck really hard and they'll empty the syringe too fast and it comes out of their nose. So I say no. But some people call me and they're like, I have been calling people for days and no one's gotten back to me. In that situation, it'd be more acceptable. But ideally, I wouldn't give them anything and just have them warm. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
What's the prevalence of gray foxes that you've seen? Because I usually see those in the yard.
Oh, really?
It's not at all, but usually we get gray ones.
Yeah, I didn't see as many this year. There's definitely less grays than reds, and they don't like each other either, so typically you'll see either or. Yeah, because they're very territorial. We raised a little gray kid this year, and because it was a single, I let Johnny raise it, and I let it get close to just one person, so it doesn't love all people. And Johnny and Victor, they were best buds. But another rehab I worked with had 3 that she raised to adults. So they're definitely, we saw a lot of them actually this year. But yeah, if other predator species have like claimed your area, you might not see them anymore.
So Jane, we're at the 75-minute mark, so why don't we take one more question,
Okay.
and then I'll keep the room open for an additional 10 to 15 minutes in
Okay.
case folks want to ask you one-on-one.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
So do you ever do anything to track the animals once they're released? To see
I haven't. That's a great question, because a lot of people ask me that. The problem with a tracker, like an actual, I could microchip them, but no one's scanning, a dead raccoon. I looked into tracking devices, and the balance is me knowing what ended up happening to them and me making it harder for them to function. Like a big bulky tracker for an animal that's trying to run from a predator, or an animal that's trying to not be seen and be really stealth, is not helpful to them. I always worry about the collars getting stuck on something, and it's very, very expensive too. So I don't do it. I don't know any rehabilitators around here to do. It tends to work better on much larger animals, like bears. It wouldn't be as cumbersome to a bear because they're so big, but a tracker for like a squirrel or a fox or something would be a little more cumbersome for them. That makes any sense. All right, well, you guys, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.